Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Srinivasa Biology Tutorial. For the section to discuss NCERT class 12, the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Okay, part 4. Next, the both wind and water pollination flowers is not very colorful and do not produce any nectar. Correct, because they are completely present in water only. What for the reason means they completely present as in a water, so that purpose it does not completely does not produce nectars like. Okay, next, the majority of the flowering plants used as the range of animals, the pollinating agents. So most of these in the plant groups we get using as in pollination in a zoophilus only, like as in animals. The animals and the pollinating agents like as in bees, butterflies, flies, and bees, wasps, ants, moths, birds, and sunbirds and hummingbirds and bats. These are common pollinating agents. So these are completely animals. These are completely help to as within the pollination. Okay. Next, among the animals, insects, and particularly bees with their dominant the biotic pollinating agents. So mostly the bees are they are biotic dominant biotic pollinatings. Next, even the large number of animals such as in some primates and arboreal trees drawing and rodents or even the reptiles like as in jingo lizards and golden lizards have also been reported as in pollinators in some species. These also completely to help you as in that pollination process. Often the flowers of the often the flowers of animals pollinated plants are specially adapted for as in a particular species in animals. So here some flowers, some animals to complete they are adapted for as in a pollination. Like next, the majority of the insect the pollinated flowers a large, colorful, and fragrant, enrich nectar. So these are completely get producing as what full nectar will be there present. When the flowers are small, number of the flowers are in a clustered into form as an inflorescence to make as them in a conspicuous. So the number of flowers to get make as in a completely one inflorescence is to get produced. So animal to completely attracted to the flowers, colors or in fragrance. So that ended the when the a bunch of the flowers is present, animals and insects they are attracted, and the flowers are pollinated by flies and butterflies. Sorry, in beetles and secret as in the fuel odorous in attract these animals. So some flowers are to get complete to release as in nectars. That nectars to get helper as in to attract to the in animals. Next, after this the certain the sustained animals in visits the flowers have provide a rewards in animals the nectars in pollen grains are in a usual the floral rewards. So the completely the nectars to get released, then what happened to automatically that enter the insects or whatever animals to get carry the pollen grains. For harvesting the rewards from the flowers, animals the visitor comes in a contact with his within the anther the stigma. So they easily that enter their carry the anthers from one flower to another flower. Next, the body of the animal gets their coaching their pollen grains with are generally sticky animals the pollinated flowers. So the mostly that pollen grains will be there sticky, and when the animals they carrying the pollen grains from the body comes for contact with stigma the bring about the pollination. So they carrying from as in one region to another region, here the pollination will be to get takes place. Okay, next, in some species the floral rewards are in providing the safe place to laying eggs. Example is that one of the tallest flowers of Amarphallus. The flowers itself about as in 6 feet height. So some in flowers the like species Amarphallus it is produced in large flowers. They protect as in that enter the floral rewards to get protect as in they laying eggs. Next, a similar relationship exists between a species a moth and the in a plant the eucalyptus, where the both species the moth and the plant cannot be complete their life cycle without each other. So they compulsory they require as any that enter two, then only they complete their life cycle. The moth the deposits the eggs on the the locule of the ovary and the flower. It turns get as in the pollinated by as in that moth. After that moth, the larva of the moth and come contact after the eggs, the seeds they start as in developing. So when they get entered, the larva of the moth come out there. What happened? That eggs will be the seed they start for that developments. Why do they you observe as in some flowers in the flowering plants or other available to you? When you observe as in a cucumber, mango, the pepper tree, and that completely coriander, papaya, onion, and lobia, cotton, tobacco, rose, lemon, and eucalyptus, banana. Try to find out which of the animals they visit the ini, whether they could not be their pollinators. You will be having that in partially observed as the flowers over a few days and at different times in a day. You could be there also you see as in a whether they are in a consideration they are completely coloration in that in a characteristic of the flower in animals in that usefulity. Then so when you observe as in different flowers, they're showing as in different that pollination and they're laying as eggs. The careful observation of any that any visitors came their contact with the any anther and stigma, only such as the visitors can be the bring any about the pollination. So in the pollen grains to get contact with as a stigma, it is a part of the any pollination. Next, many the insects may be there consume the pollen or the nectar without their bring about any pollination. Without any pollination, they completely bring information. Next, such as in a floral visitors, they are referred as in a pollen nectar in a robberies. Maybe you may or not able to identify the pollinators, but you will be there surely enjoy their efforts. So they each and every flower to get give as in that nectars, and they completely the insects also they are completely depends upon the nectars. Next, after let us discuss outbreeding devices. Let us hear the few classes. The male and female sex organs will be get ready to further fertilization, but that all conditions is perfect, but pollination will be not done, or that enter the fertilization is not done. Why? That is let us discuss outbreeding devices. The majority of the flowering plants, the produce as in that in hermaphrodite flowers and the pollen grains is likely come to contact with the stigma of the in same flower and then continue the self-pollination result their interbreeding depression. Here, in this depression process, what happened that in a pollen grains to get contact as a stigma and the pollination that takes place on the same flower, that is a part of the self-pollination. The flowering plants, it is developed as in a many the device discourages the self-pollination and encourage in a cross-pollination. Mostly the self-pollination will be they completely discourage and cross-pollination will be to mostly encourage. Now let us see that some species. In some species, the pollen release the stigma respectively, not the synchronized. So here the completely does not the synchronizing as in a that all, and the synchronizing condition means already I'll explain what is the and complete anthers and the stigma to get mature at a time, that is called as synchronizing condition. So it is not the showing, and either the pollen is released before the stigma becomes respective the stigma or there become respective much before the release the pollen. So when the stigma is mature, the time the pollen grains are not maturing. If in case the pollen grains is mature, the time the stigma is not mature. So there are different times their maturation will take place. What happened here? The pollination will be not done. In some other species, the anther and the stigma placed as a different positions. It is cannot be. They are contact with the stigma, the pollen grains in the same flower. So sometimes what happened here? The completely the stigma and style they are arranged as in different positions. To get arranged as in different positions, here what happened? To get completely the pollen grains are not reached to as in a stigma of the flower. Here also pollination is not takes place. Both they devise the prevent autogamy. These both are they prevent as in a autogamy. The third device, when you observe the third device here, the prevent the interbreeding the self incompatibility. This is a genetic mechanism to prevent as a self pollination from the same flower of the plant at same plant from in their fertilizing the ovules, the inhibiting the pollen germination or pollen tube growth of the pistil. So in that some species self incompatibility means what? In the self incompatibility means when they get sick here the style to get form as in the pollen tube. Am right? The pollen tube here germination will be get stopped or the seed they enter the germination will get stopped. So in this pollen tube they get stopped here. What happened? The pollen grains are not reached here. Here pollination does not takes place. Like, and another device that prevent the self pollination, it is a production of in a unisexual flowers. If the both male and female are represented as in the same plant, such as in a castor and maize, they are called as in a monoecious plants. In some another their device is present that both male and female sex organs is present as in a in completely one single flower, that is single species. That example when given here, monoecious plants, maize and they given as in a completely maize and castor, maize and castor they given here. Next, it prevent as an androgamy, but it is not any getinogamy. Like in some several species like as in a papaya, male and female they present other different plants, that is either male separate and female separate. So that is a dioecious condition. This condition prevent as an androgamy and then getinogamy. So the different plants to get produced in a different kind of their sex organs. Next, what is a pollen pistil interaction? Next, let us discuss what is a pollen pistil interaction. Pollination does not guarantee that in a transfer of the pollen, the right type of pollen grains incompatible the pollen the same species of the in a stigma. So sometimes it does not possible, it is not there directly the pollen grains are to get reach as in the stigma of the flower. And here pollen of in a wrong type either in form as in the species from the same plant, it is the self incompatibility. So sometimes here what happened before we discuss as in a self incompatibility also, it also the land of the stigma, the pistil has ability to recognize the in a pollen where either in a the right type that is in a compatible, in a wrong type that is in a incompatible, that is in a the types of in this the two types of the in a pistil that are accepted as in the pollen and promoted as in a their post fertilization events. That post fertilization events also that they are completely they are leads the fertilization, they completely leads the in a fertilization, leads the fertilization. If the pollen of in a wrong type, the pistil the reject as in a pollen by as in a preventing the pollen germination on the stigma on the pollen, the growth of the style. So sometimes they get in case they reach what happened, the pollen tube is not they get germinates. And the ability of the pistil to recognize the pollen the forward by as in acceptance or rejection is in a result the continuous in a dialogue between the pollen grain and then pistil. There is they're accepting or not, that depends upon the here the pollen grain as well as in a pistil. Now the dialogue is in a they mediated by as in the chemical components of the pollen interacting with those the pistil. So the pistil and pollen grain, the chemical contaction based on their completely the pollen tube will be the get germinates. It is not only in the recent years the botanists have been able to identify in some pollen grains and the pistils their components and the interaction leading to the in a their recognition that followed as in their acceptance and rejections. So some scientists they are observed as in a some pollen grains, some plants they are accepting, some they are not completely accepting. Next, as I mentioned earlier, the following that compatible to pollination, the pollen grain germinates on the stigma to produce as in a pollen tube through as in a one of the germpore. So the enter the pollen tube there enter through one only for the germpore. It is a in a contents of the pollen grains move into the in the pollen tube. So most of the pollen grains to get move into the that pollen tube and they growth as an here the pollen tube grow through the as in a tissue, the stigma and the style and reach the in a completely ovary. So the enter the pollen tube to reach as in a enter the ovary. You will recall as in some plants the pollen grains are they share two celled condition. One is in a completely vegetative cell and second one is in a generative cell. See here, it is in a vegetative cell. Sorry, it is a generative cell. It is in completely what? Vegetative cell. It is in a vegetative and it is in a generative cell. Generative cell. In such plants as in generative cell divided into to form as two male gametes during the growth of the pollen tube on the stigma. So generative cell again to be divided as in a two male gamete. It is in a first male gamete. It is in a that is second male gamete, first male gamete and then second male gamete. So here the plant which shed as in a pollen tube as in 3-cell condition, in this pollen tube carry as in 2 male gametes, they are beginning the pollen tube after the reaching of the ovary. So these 2 male gametes to get reach as in a completely in that ovary part. Next, the entry of the ovule through the in a micropyle, the enters on the in a synergids through the in a filiform apparatus. So mostly the completely here the pollen tube enter through as in synergids or in a filiform apparatus. May recent studies have shown that in the filiform apparatus presence on the micropyle part and synergids guides to as an entry of the pollen tube. The before only we discussed here the filiform apparatus means the finger like projections as noticed, those are called as what? Those are completely called as any the filiform apparatus, they give as any guidelines of the pollen grains. Next, all of these events from the pollen deposition of the stigma until the pollen tube entry of the ovule or to gather, it is completely referred to as a pollen pistil interaction. So this completely mechanism is called as what? Pollen pistil interaction. It is called as what? Completely pollen pistil interaction. Next, as point out as in a earlier pollen pistil interaction, it is dynamic process involving the recognition followed as in the completely promotions as the inhibition of the in a pollen part. So in the it is a completely, it is total process will be there to get a contact with as in a pollen grain into as in a stigma. It is in a, it is depends upon the in a that both communication, one is in a promotion, other in a inhibition. Knowledge, the knowledge gained in this the area would be the help to as a plant their breeder in manipulating the pollen pistil interaction, even the in incompatible pollination to get as a described hybrids. So then what happened, we getting as a number of their hybrids also to get formed. Okay, like next, you can easily study about as a pollen germination by as in their distinct some as in a pollen from flowers such as in a pea plant, their chickpea and crotalaria and balsam and vinca and in some the glass side is containing as a drop sugar solution about as in 10% after you observe as in a 15 to 30 minutes observe this the slide under you see as in low lens on microscope, you likely see the pollen tube coming with as in the pollen grains. See, when you collect as in some pollen grains and you completely kept here, after you get add with as in a sugar solution after 20 to 30 25 to in a 30 minutes 25 to 30 minutes after you observe what happened, each and every pollen grain to get start their germinating, they can start with their germinating line. Okay, that is next, after the breeder as in interested here, the breeder interested across the different species often the genera in combined with as in desirable characters produced as in a commonly in a superior varieties, that is in a artificial hybridization is any major approach of the crop improvement program. So that the different characters will be how to get developing with the help of in a artificial hybridization. In such crossing the experiments, it is important to make sure that only for desirable pollen grains are used as in a pollination in the stigma to protect it from as a contamination. It is achieved by as in a emasculation bagging techniques. So in this total breeds, the hybrids how we are getting, we are artificially we doing here in the laboratory or in that in a garden areas. Okay, in this process we completely they are following as an emasculation and bagging process. In this emasculation means in that in a one completely in bisexual flower, in completely one in bisexual flower to removal of anthers, to get removal of anthers. For example, when you take this is in a bisexual flower, here removal of the anthers is called as an emasculation with the help of the scissors, and then bagging process means that anthers to completely to get here this entire these spots they be covered with as in a butter paper or polythene paper, that is called as in a bagging technique. Okay, that is that by in that female parts bears as in a bisexual flowers remove the anther from the flower or bud before the anther descends using pair of in a forceps or necessary. This step is called as an emasculation. Like so, when that removal of the completely stamens on the bisexual flower, it is called as what? That is a emasculation process. Now that in a emasculated flowers to be they're covered with as in a bag, the suitable size and generally they're made up of as a butter paper. to prevent the contamination of the stigma, unwanted pollen grain. This is called as a bagging process. So unwanted pollen grains also we covered with as a their butter paper with help of what butter paper in that completely pollen grains are to completely to get covered. Next, when the stigma of in the bagged flowers so the completely the attends the respectively so in that respectively the mature the pollen grains are collected by anther in a male parent is dusted on the stigma and the flowers are rebagged. So the remaining pollen grains also to get completely they get rebagged means again to get complete their cover with as their polythene paper and the fruits allowed to develop. So when you do like what happened fruits to be developed. Next, if the female parent produces as an unisexual flowers, there is no need for as an emasculation. The female flowers bursts they bagged for as in flowers they're open when the stigma become respective. The pollination carried out using that in a desirable pollen and their flower rebagged. Once you completely the female flowers to get completely back what happened we no need of any the rebags and no need of removal of any completely the male or female flowers. Okay, this is okay the remaining to discuss in next class. Thank you for watching.